Welcome to the May 31st, 2026 Construction AI update for inside of ContractorOS. The first thing that I want to show for you is that we now have a new Cowork Foundations course inside of ContractorOS that you can check out if it is still a topic that is confusing you. So simply come to the Classrooms tab here, AI Foundations, and you'll see there's a Claude Cowork deep dive section with a number of different areas that you can go through and get your own Cowork set up without the questions. Now on to today's updates. We have three things, which is Claude Opus 4.8 has been released. Turner Construction, the largest construction company by revenue in the US, has released their own safety coach. And also Google has announced a ton of new features coming to Gemini and their workspace in general. So let's kick it off with Claude Opus 4.8, as that's the most common, as Claude is the most common model. Claude is the most common provider that is used inside of ContractorOS for now. And what 4.8 really is just a little incremental step up in terms of the capabilities it has from 4.7. I know in particular a lot of people struggled to really find their feet with 4.7 and actually preferred 4.6, but my initial thoughts on 4.8 is that it is a meaningful improvement in terms of staying on track and actually delivering an output that's useful, as well as being a little bit more honest in terms of reviewing and checking the answers that actually come back out. You can see that's reflected in these benchmarks that have come through with realistically just slight improvements over 4.7. But the initial feedback from people using it has been great. So something to keep an eye on. And as well as releasing 4.8, they also released a feature in Claude Code called Dynamic Workflows, which actually allows Claude to essentially spin off a ton of different agents, up to a few hundred, to go and through scripts to go and complete tasks to essentially tackle larger scale problems with Claude itself. So that's Claude's update. Now, interestingly, Turner Construction have been working on this for quite a while now. Essentially, it's a safety coach that they've trained on. It is at this stage just the US health and safety information, but also there's a ton of data behind it as well. And you can see on the website here, essentially describing what it is. Essentially, it's a trained model that sits within ChatGPT that anyone can now access, provided they have ChatGPT. And if you continue down, you can see they'll give you a few use cases. One that is just here was a photo that basically highlighted that a large excavator was operating too close to a pedestrian walkway. Now, obviously this is for the US only, but it's also one of those things where it can definitely provide some useful insights. But again, reviewing it with our expertise will be important here. And you can see when you click through to use it, it just takes you to ChatGPT as an agent as such. So they give you some set up things that you can use as well. But very cool to see a large company actually start looking forward in terms of what the real capabilities are when you do have a lot of data and behind it as well. I think the safety space will be an interesting one in the future, especially for larger contractors, as they have the ability to review all of their reportings that come through and be able to pull out stats from that and be able to tailor some processes, alignments to make sure that these little incidences don't turn into bigger ones in the future, and learning before something big happens. So very exciting to see where that goes in this space. And I really like that Turner Construction are giving out essentially some tools that potentially smaller contractors or those new to industry can start to use as a baseline as they move forward with their work. And the third thing for this week is that Google has announced a ton of upcoming features coming to Gemini. Now, this is really only applicable if you run in the Google Workspace environment, because essentially what it is doing is making it much more cohesive so that you can work between your email, chat, files, Google Sheets, everything much more seamlessly. And I think one of the other big things that comes out of this is that you can now start to create workflows using what's called Google Workspace Studio. And it sort of shows the direction that Google's heading, as well as features like Gemini Spark that are coming out shortly, where Gemini can go out and actually complete tasks on your behalf. So it shows that Google's approach to the, I guess, the Claude Cowork type setup. This is more folding into their own view of that. And it's going to be very interesting to see when these get released, how that plays out. But I think Google seems to be taking a bit more of a slower approach, and now we're finally starting to see that pay off. And my opinion on that is essentially that, Anthropic and that need to start generating revenue now, whereas Google is massive. They have time where they can really work and refine on what they want to release without having so much of the hype cycle that tends to come in with OpenAI and Anthropic. So it will be very interesting to see where that goes. And that is this week's Construction AI update, and I will see you in the next one.